Hello and welcome to the 196th edition of the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast. In Nashville, Tennessee, I'm the professor, Matt Perkins. And a Philly special across the Harpeth River from me here in the Music City, it's our own offensive coordinator, the coach, Corey Burton.
Well, as long as I catch that Philly special, then it's a good thing. So we'll see how it goes. And happy to be here. Excited for week 4. And I'm obviously excited now because Georgia's finally playing a extremely quality opponent.
A real team.
A real team. Yeah. And we'll talk about that later, I'm sure. So let's get to it.
All right. Well, we can't get to it without the third amigo in the second city, a man who makes a mean mint julep. It's our intrepid blogger from Big Ten and Counting, Josh Cook.
I mean, we're a ways off from the next Derby Day, so I won't be having a julep for a while. The secret is make your own simple syrup. It's easy. You just dissolve some sugar, but it somehow tastes better than the store-bought stuff.
Absolutely. Well, it is week 4. We have some huge matchups, especially for coaches Dawgs and Josh, our alma mater. But before we get to those, let's get to some quick slants. And Josh, I know a couple of 3-0 teams caught your eye.
They did. Yeah, I wanted to quickly run through the teams that are sitting at 3-0 on the young season. And I kind of broke them down into teams that I'm still buying, teams that I am going to hold on to the stock and see if they keep up this hot streak. And the other is teams that I'm going to sell. So the buy, we'll start with the good ones. I think this is going to be pretty unanimous, but Bama, Clemson, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Georgia, and Utah all have very real title aspirations, whether it's conference or national.
I mean,
no
that's
one
fair.
seems to disagree.
No, that's fair.
The other teams I have in this buy group, and this is for either a division or a conference title, because a couple of these teams are in the same division. But down in the American, I got Central Florida. They've looked really good. They are at Pitt this week. They have future dates at Cincy, at Temple, Houston, and at Tulane. But they'll be favored in all of those games, and I think it's safe to say their offense is on fire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you so far.
I'm also going to be buying Memphis. I'm a little surprised they're 3-0 based on what they look like against Ole Miss, but they've rolled the last 2 weeks. Their schedule is pretty favorable at Temple, Tulane, SMU, at Houston, and Cincinnati. I think those are manageable games still.
Yeah, those should be, they should be favored in all those.
And the last of my group is Boise of this bye group. They have 3 tough games left, 2 of which are at home. That's Air Force and Wyoming. They have a trip to Provo, but they're also looking like the real deal.
Yeah, they are definitely the real deal. And they've got a quarterback there who's now a freshman is going to be outstanding for a while.
Yeah, I mean, since they dismantled Florida State, I was thoroughly impressed with them because that's probably the most I've seen Boise State all year, like in one sitting. And man, oh man, they just even when Florida State was starting to pull away, or it seemed like they were starting to pull away, they just hung in there. They kept their poise and they just kept chopping one play at a time, and bam, won the game.
All right, and then a Power 5 buy that I have. I'm liking what Virginia's doing. They only have one ranked team left on their slate, and that's Notre Dame. So looks like a pretty clear path to the ACC title game.
Yeah, they're another team that has shown a lot of patience. They're a team that I really like in that division, and they're just playing really good team football right now, and it's impressive.
All right, let's move on to the holds then. My first hold, heading back to the American, is SMU. Their offense has looked great. They beat a North Texas team that's struggling right now, but we still like their long-term projections for the year. They have their huge rivalry game at TCU, which we'll talk about more in spread formations. And then their tough games in conference, Temple, at Houston, at Memphis, and Tulane. since we're doing that in spread formations, we'll talk about the ponies a little bit more. Another team that I'm holding, Wake Forest. Their Utah State and North Carolina wins are nice. They have Elon next to get to 4-0. They head to Clemson, though, for a difficult game. Are you guys buying them for real yet, or are they just going to be kind of a nice bowl team?
Show me a little more and before I really buy in.
So they're a bold for you as
I'm
well.
with you too, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of teams in that category of they look nice right now, but, I just want to see more.
Two teams that are very similar, Kansas State and Oklahoma State. The biggest win between these two teams was KSU down there at Mississippi State, but neither have played a Big 12 game. I think it's way too early to tell on either of those clubs.
Yeah, I'm not really buying Oklahoma State as much as I'm buying Kansas State, but I'm still kind of a wait and see on either of them. But I've probably, if you had to press me for a decision right now, I'd probably hold on K-State, and I might just sell Oklahoma State at this point.
All right. So
I don't know if I'm going to sell Oklahoma State at this point. At this point, I have thoughts on this weekend's game for them.
Yeah,
but we'll get to that a little bit later.
We will get to that a little bit later. Two other teams I'm grouping together: Cal, Arizona State. Both have showed really good defense so far. I don't think either of them have shown the ability to score reliably. Sticking to the Pac-12, how about Wazoo? Really hot start, but their schedule is pretty nasty. They have road trips. These are all road trips I'm about to list: Utah, Arizona State, Oregon, Cal, Washington.
Yeah, great story. That's just brutal.
Yeah.
Those are the five
brutal.
of the strongest teams in the entire league.
Yeah.
And going back to UCF,
that is tough, man.
And going back to UCF, even though I know they're going to be favored in all of those games, road games aren't easy. And they in one of those middle road games, they could slip up. Maybe Temple has a good game plan for them. They're going to get everybody's best shot. So it'll be interesting to see how UCF actually fares on all those road trips as well.
All right, going over to your conference, Coach, LSU. Their running game so far has been putrid. They're averaging 115 yards per game. For me, I don't think that's going to be enough for them to win the division. But between Burrow and that defense, I'm at least keeping them at a hold status for right now.
Yeah, I'm a hold, and I got my wallet out ready to buy.
Fair enough.
If they can figure out that run game, I think they'll be nasty.
Yeah. A couple other holds, two from the Big Ten, Penn State. The Pitt game left a lot to be desired. They have road trips to Maryland, Iowa, Michigan State, Minnesota, Ohio State, which is tricky. Also in the Big Ten, Iowa. They've been bitten by the injury bug in their secondary, and they have road trips to Michigan, Wisconsin, Nebraska. I think both of them have the potential, if everything goes the right way, to win their division, but they're a hold. Matt, you're a Big Ten person. Any thoughts on that?
Give it to me one more time.
Penn State and Iowa.
Yeah, I'll buy Iowa before I buy Penn State.
That's probably more of a factor of the divisions.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But, I mean, you have to factor that in if you're trying to buy into an undefeated season.
Yeah. Well, I'm just buying in terms of,
overall quality.
Can they win their division? Things like that.
Yeah.
So. Lastly, the last final hold team is a San Diego State team. Their defense is looking really good. Their running game is good statistically, but it's not up to the previous scary level, and I'm still not sure that they're going to pass it well enough to threaten Fresno State or Boise State up at the top of that conference. And that leaves the cell teams. So we'll go down to a team that, Coach, I'm sure you're just all broken up that I'm not buying them, but Florida. Let's be honest, their starting quarterback is out. I know that the backup played admirably, but there's still a reason Felipe Franks was number one on the depth chart.
And Kentucky probably lost that game more than Florida won it.
They have Auburn and LSU, and the LSU
Brutal.
game's a road trip. Those are their crossovers. Their running game is also not terribly impressive so far. 139.6 yards per game, but that's factoring in they got to play Tennessee Martin to pad their rushing stats.
I mean, I really like LaMichael Pirine, but he's just not getting any help. That O-line is like paper thin. Yeah. No depth.
Yeah. Auburn, I'm also selling right now. Nix is a freshman, has looked at times, and then a brutal schedule at Florida, at LSU, Georgia, and Bama.
And right now, they're not 100% sold that Nix is completely the guy. They've still got Gatewood floating around in there, and they're still taking a look at Joey Gatewood in some of these games, and Auburn themselves might not be sold on who they have taking snaps.
All right, the final two teams, these were pretty easy sells for me. Minnesota, just quite frankly, they're a couple weird bounces away from being 0-3, and their best offensive player, Mohamed Ibrahim, their running back, really, really talented kid. He's dinged up and hardly played the last game. So that's a big issue. And then Wyoming, they barely beat Idaho their last game out. They have zero pass attack. They have 2 games under 100 passing yards already this season. We like Craig Bowl, but, I mean, I just don't see them having much higher expectations than finding 3 more wins to get 6-6 in a bowl game this year. I don't see them competing at all in the Mountain West.
All right, Coach. Well, for your first slant, I know you want to talk about your newly adopted Georgia State team.
Yeah, I want to talk to them talk to them. Yeah, I wish I could go down there and talk to them, but I just talk about them briefly. They're looking to bounce back off of 57-10 thrashing in Kalamazoo. They're taking on Texas State this week. That should be a good bounce back game for them. They should get everything back on track. And not have a total team meltdown. One thing they can surely go only one direction, that is up in this category, and that's rush defense. Surely Texas State won't rush for 7 touchdowns and a gazillion yards, so that should be fun. But this first quick slant, I want to take it to a different direction, and I want to take a look at a game with a couple of teams that had some heartbreakers last week, so this might be, you could probably call this the rebounders game. Both Mississippi State and Kentucky had games that they were somewhat in control of at some points, and they lost. More so Kentucky than Mississippi State. Mississippi State just was on the wrong end of a good duel with Kansas State, and Kentucky again just gave the game away against Florida a week ago and backup quarterback Kyle Trask. So both these teams looking to get back on track. It's for Mississippi State. The biggest key to for them is just who the heck is going to play quarterback. Tommy Stevens, a couple weeks in a row, he'd get off to a good start. He would be rolling, and then all of a sudden he gets hurt, leaves at halftime. Then Garrett Schrader comes in. Looks pretty good in relief, but they couldn't find the consistency to get over the hump and win the game they should have won the game they could have won last week. So they've got to find some consistency at the quarterback position. Anytime you struggle to find a solid guy, your team's going to struggle overall. So that's a challenge Joe Moorhead's got going. For Kentucky, they've just got to get Sawyer Smith going. They've got to protect him, and he's got to protect the ball. I think the key for Kentucky is just also, really just win the turnover battle, and that should help things. A couple key turnovers in the second half there. If they just protect the ball a little bit better, Florida's probably not even close. So, there's just 2 teams looking to bounce back. 2 very well-coached teams. This should be a solid game, and I'm thinking Mississippi State's going to come out ahead. I think they're just slightly better, and I think they're in a slightly better situation at the quarterback position, and that's kind of really one of the keys to this matchup.
Well, Josh, speaking of adopted teams, both your Eastern Michigan Eagles and my East Carolina Pirates are playing FCS squads this weekend. Central Connecticut is undefeated, though. Do they pose any threat to your Screaming Eagles?
Well, sure. I mean, with Eastern Michigan, they're still a long ways from being fully rebuilt as a program that can feel 100% awesome about these games, but it should be a great opportunity. They've gone 2-1. They beat Illinois on the road. They have to be feeling good about themselves. If they take care of this one, they'll be 3-1 heading into league play. That puts them in a great position for a bowl. So I think they should be fired up for this one. It's also, this is crazy to think about, but sometimes this happens with MAC teams. This is their home opener. So good people, Ypsilanti, get out, support this team. They're playing some good football, and have a day of tailgating and some beer. Do it.
Yeah, why not? East Carolina gets William and Mary. William and Mary, off to a 2-1 start. But I feel like East Carolina at this point just needs something. They need to get their offense moving, because they simply just have not looked good on the offensive side of the ball, except when they were playing FCS Gardner Webb. I'm sorry. And so, maybe having William and Mary is another good sign for them, but still, they look completely outmatched by Navy, completely outmatched by North Carolina State, and they just could not move the ball in either of those games. All right, so for my slant, and because it is finally week 4, that means, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time of year again to finally start play in the Ivy League. So the Ancient Eight are finally getting around to matriculating the ball down the field. If you'll remember, last year, Princeton finished 10-0, which was the 13th undefeated season in the history of the conference. Unfortunately for the Tigers, they have to replace a lot of guys, and a lot of really key guys on both sides of the ball, including their starting quarterback, Ivy League Offensive Player of the Year, John Lovett, as well as receiver Jesper Horsted, and who was their leading receiver last year. They have to replace their leading rusher and 3 of their top 4 tacklers. So that is going to be a tall task for them this year. But, they are still loaded with talent. The team that came closest to beating them last year is Dartmouth, and they are on track for another strong season as well. But they have to hope that their inexperienced offensive line can get up to speed quickly. They lost 4 of their 5 starters, all 4 of whom were either first or second team all conference. Expect the Big Green to continue to use their 2 quarterback system. Derek Kyler is going to throw the ball more. Jared Gerbino is going to be putting in work on the ground. He is just a mountain of a man. He looks like Gronk playing quarterback. It's very strange, but surprisingly effective. He is finally a senior. It feels like he's been here since the Eisenhower administration, but he has been a great change of pace. Never like truly the full-time guy, but sort of the heart and soul of a lot of those Dartmouth, or winning teams that have been really, really strong. I think it's 38-12 over the past 5 years. So Dartmouth also has the best defensive player in the league. Their cornerback, Isaiah Swan, is the reigning conference defensive player of the year. However, neither of these 2 teams were the preseason pick by the media to win the league. That distinction would go to Yale. They returned basically their entire team, but that team suffered a boatload of injuries last year. But the fully healthy Bulldogs will be very tough to contend with. They get back Zane Dudek, who was all-conference in 2017, and he missed most of last season with injuries. In his place stepped Alan Lamar. All he did was be first-team all-conference in 2018 at running back. So they have the best running back room in the league by far. They can spread the ball around. They've got a lot of guys, and that's why they are the preseason favorite. They also have strong lines on both sides of the ball. They're going to be a tough out for anyone. 2 dark horses in the league this year, those would be Harvard and Penn. Harvard has had the strongest recruiting classes over the past few years, ranked 8th, 1st, 6th, and 1st again in the last 4 years, not just in the league, but across all of FCS. You have to like the talent moving forward. Penn returns 15 starters from a team that hasn't had a losing season since 2014. Columbia somehow got a preseason #1 vote from the media. And like Yale, they had a ton of injuries last year. And also Columbia, like Penn, returns a ton of starters, but they do not have that same high-end talent like the Quakers do. Cornell and Brown, like usual, round out the bottom of the league. The Big Red haven't had a winning season since 2011, and Brown haven't had a meaningful victory since '54 when they beat Topeka 9-0. That's a history joke, folks. For me, I think it's going to...
You said it so fast.
I'm sorry.
You got to work on the delivery. I thought you were just listing facts. I didn't even process it as a joke.
I was
so maybe the joke was extremely effective.
Maybe.
So anyway, it's going to come down for me. I think Princeton has to replace too much. It's going to come down to Yale and Dartmouth. Dartmouth plays in New Haven on October 12th. That's going to be, assuming that they are able to win at Penn the week before. I mean, that could basically be the race this year in the league. Princeton Dartmouth will play in November in Hanover. Wish I could be there for that one. That's going to be a lot of fun. But, I'm going to take Dartmouth, not just because I'm a homer, but I am a homer, but also because I think that they have the best mix of talent, depth, and experience out of any of the real contenders in the league.
There you go.
Yeah. So anyway, no pop quiz this week. We're going to get straight into the deep roots because there are so many games to choose from and so many really, really juicy matchups that we have to get into the good stuff. And Coach, I'm just going to throw you some red meat. Notre Dame against top 5 teams, I believe in the last 14 games are 1-13. I think the top 5 teams on the road. Top 5 teams on the road. Are 1-13 in their last 14. I get a feeling that that trend is going to stay going in the same direction between the hedges. But I would like you to break it down a little bit more in depth for us.
Okay, so let's start with the quarterback battle. Okay, that seems to be where everyone likes to start. So you have Ian Book versus Jake Fromm. Advantage Jake Fromm right now. He's getting extremely comfortable with these receivers now. They're starting to kind of build a rapport, especially with George Pickens, Lawrence Cager, who was the grad transfer from Miami. Dominic Blaylock seems to be a guy that's getting that's finding some action. And most notably, one of the guys that's emerged to that, he's emerging in a role that wasn't previously thought of a year ago, and that's James Cook. And he's kind of like the all-around, and I call these guys my Swiss Army knife. I have a few of them on my team at Hillwood, and I call them the Swiss Army knife because they can play just about anywhere. And one of those Swiss Army knives will be getting some work in at quarterback for me tomorrow night, actually. But he can be a quarterback, running back, and then he can play all 4 receiver positions. So James Cook is somebody that he's the brother of Dalvin Cook. He's somebody that could be an electrifying playmaker for the Dogs and an option in the pass game, in the perimeter run game, all of that good stuff. He's very, very dynamic. You have a tandem of DeAndre Swift, who's playing really well right now, and Brian Herrien. So their run game with behind an offensive line that weighs a svelte average of 328, I think, is what the average is across the board for Georgia's offensive line. So a lot of beef there. So a lot of red meat, pun intended. So that's on the offensive side of the ball. They have Georgia still hasn't found an exact identity. The identity that they want is to be a bruising run team that runs first to set up the pass. And if they could, like at Vanderbilt, if they could just cram it down your throat, 9 yards of carry, why pass? So they're hoping that they can do as much of that as they can to teams. But Jake Fromm has the ability to check in and out of good plays, and I think his veteran presence will be a huge factor for Georgia, especially against a familiar opponent that he played against when he was a freshman, making his first start. And I'm sure there was a lot of nerves there as well. So Ian Book is somebody that's intriguing. He's getting the job done. He's playing well. He's not a guy that's going to electrify you with his arm. He's not a guy that's going to electrify you with his feet. He's just smart and he takes care of the football. So he has 6 touchdowns, no interceptions, and that's the key word for him is efficiency. So if Georgia, if they want to win and possibly win big, I think this front 7 is going to have a large task in front of them, and their job is to get in Ian Book's face, knock him down, hit him, sack him, disrupt the ball, try to force turnovers, try to force them behind the chains, all that good stuff. Georgia's strength is in its defensive front, led by Azeez Ojulari. The outside linebacker position is, I don't know the exact number at this point, but they have a ton of sacks. And so they kind of they have 24 sacks all of last season. They have 12 so far. That's the stat right there. And most of those coming from the outside linebacker position. So it's an exciting matchup. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. I've heard there's going to be 60,000 people there without tickets. Think about that for a second.
Yeah, and I think the cheapest tickets are going for something like $650 a piece.
Yeah, it's insane.
Game day is going to be there.
Game day is going to be there. It's a night game in Athens, so the moniker "drunk obnoxious Georgia fan" will be in full effect. As I think they're calling for actually a red out, so for the fans to wear all red, and I think they have some new red LED lights that they put on. So it'll be fun to watch. I think Notre Dame is a much better team this time around than they were the first time. I think Notre Dame, the reason they made it so close is because Georgia was relatively inexperienced the last time they played. I think both teams are in a much better spot right now, and so this should be another interesting game, but against 2 teams that we know are pretty good. So if Georgia can cause havoc and they can strike with some big plays, I think this game could swing in their favor. Notre Dame, they've got to methodically drive the ball. They've got to keep it out of Georgia's hands. They've got to control the clock, continue to protect the ball, be efficient, and be opportunistic. Because when they may not have many trips down in scoring position, so they've got to take advantage of the ones that they do have.
Josh, one of the things that would really concern me if I was Notre Dame was the fact that Georgia's offensive line might be the best in the country. And I'm not sure that this Notre Dame rush defense is the same as it has been in previous years. I mean, they've played 2 lesser opponents, but even those 2 teams we're still running for over 225 yards a game on them.
Yeah, I mean, Louisville is really the only game you can look at. Let's be honest. New Mexico, they're in for a long year, and their coach didn't make the trip as Bob Davie is dealing with some health stuff. And the Louisville game just was kind of a flat performance. Notre Dame kind of came out hot and scored some points early, and then it was pretty much an even affair. Until they pulled away a little bit there in the second half. But overall, I wouldn't say that Notre Dame looked like world beaters. I wouldn't say that Ian Book looked like he's off to the races and going to be one of Notre Dame's all-time best quarterbacks. The defense had some plays that were okay, but they also gave up 14 first-quarter points. So I just think from what we've seen about both these 2 teams, the IS, very clearly a Georgia win in the making if they play up to their expected standards. And, Matt, you opened with a little bit of history, so I wanted to give a little bit of history. I looked at Brian Kelly, his time at Notre Dame, and I pulled out all the games where Notre Dame was ranked and they were playing a true road game against a ranked opponent. So no bowl games, no neutral site games. Anyone care to guess his overall record out of 12 games?
Who, for Brian Kelly?
Yeah, as on the road as a ranked team at a true road game of another ranked opponent.
2-10.
You hit it.
Oh.
His 2 wins. Anyone care to wager a guess on that? One was last year against
NC State.
Nope.
Oh.
At Virginia Tech.
Oh, okay.
It was 24th.
They were ranked?
Yep, and ended up going just 6-7.
Huh?
And the other was back in 2015 against that really fun Temple team that won their division, and they were ranked 20. They were ranked 21st at the time. So the track record for Brian Kelly isn't great, obviously, and I don't know if 12 games is a big enough sample size, but that's a full season of football, and it's pretty clear that things don't go his way for whatever reason it is when Notre Dame is ranked and they're on the road at another ranked team. So if I'm coach, I'm feeling pretty good about an opportunity to get a really nice confidence boost before SEC play. And this is their last ranked opponent for several weeks before some cocktail party game. I don't know. Everyone always talks about that one, but yeah, this is their first.
Something in Jacksonville.
Yeah. So this is a good opportunity for Georgia.
It's a great opportunity for the Dogs. I rarely believe in Notre Dame to begin with, and this Georgia team is too talented, too cohesive a unit on both sides of the ball, but especially I talked about that offensive line. I think Isaiah Wilson is the largest like athletic specimen I've ever seen.
He's only 6'8", 340.
I feel like that underlists him. He is huge. And Andrew Thomas is fantastic. So
him and Andrew Thomas were standing next to each other, and Andrew Thomas looked like a regular dude standing next to him. It just made me realize how big Isaiah Wilson is, because what we know about Andrew Thomas is he's enormous too.
He's probably only 6'5", 310?
Only,
exactly. So Isaiah Wilson is massive, but he's not one of those massive dudes that's plotting. He's surprisingly light on his feet.
Yeah, that's Scott Strickland, head strength coordinator. When Isaiah Wilson came in, he was tipping the scales at about 400 pounds. And he was a doughboy. And he took a redshirt year, and Strickland got him right. And it was got in that strength program, got good nutrition advice, and he cut down to about 340, and a lot of that's good weight. So, the strength staff has definitely earned their keep in that regard.
Gotta love when you're cutting down to 340. Man,
yeah,
must be nice. Anyhow, I like Georgia. I like Georgia in this game big. I hope to watch the game with you, Coach. I hope that we are able to celebrate mini dog touchdowns. So we need to keep moving forward, though, in the SEC. Coach, another top 25 matchup, this time between two SEC teams. Auburn heads to College Station to take on the Aggies. Last time we saw Texas A&M versus a real opponent, they were losing in a game that was not as close as the score suggests against Clemson down there in Death Valley. Auburn 3-0 on the young season, but I feel like Bo Nix has started to regress a little bit, and I strangely like Texas A&M in this spot, Coach. So tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't think that you're wrong. I think A&M played admirably for a little while. They hung in there with Clemson. I think they're just not as deep and talented as Clemson was, but I think that Auburn doesn't really know what they want, what they're trying to accomplish, and I think Texas A&M knows what they can do, which it may not be much sometimes, and it may be kind of inconsistent, but Kellen Mond is he's definitely talented enough to be have the upper hand here. But really, what makes this swing in favor of Texas A&M, in my opinion, is the court. I mean, I know I sound like a broken record, but it's the quarterback position in this one. I think the quarterback position specifically for Auburn, and can Bo Nix play a consistent game? Can Auburn's running game do its thing? I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I don't think Auburn knows exactly what's going to happen, to be honest with you. It's really just kind of they need to find their identity. And I think Bo Nix is somebody that he's going through that freshman roller coaster that some freshmen come in. I don't want to say Trevor Lawrence because he's an outlier regardless, but there's a lot of freshmen that come in. They play extremely solidly. They don't play great, but they play consistently solid. And then there's some freshmen that come in as roller coasters. They're up 1 minute, they're down the next, and then there's other freshmen that come in and they're just not ready for the big time. And so we're trying to figure out where Bo Nix kind of fits into that and kind of see if he can get something going. So
yeah, I mean, when you talk about, freshmen coming in and having success like Trevor Lawrence, it's basically Trevor Lawrence, Jamel Holloway, and no one else when it comes to being a true freshman coming in and playing like that. So I don't really know.
Yeah. No, that's an outlier. I mentioned that was an outlier, that was not the norm. The norm is more of, start off with a bang, have like a midseason lull, and then kind of pick it back up and, just kind of not quite the roller coaster, but close to the roller coaster. That I feel like that's kind of the norm. And a lot of it's due to the fact that these freshman quarterback are coming in more ready than they used to. It used to be you were almost guaranteed to sit in redshirt, but they're coming in more ready, and I think that plays a big factor in it. But I don't know. I mean, just the quarterback battle in this game. Kellen Mond has weapons to throw to. Jamon Osborne is somebody that really can make big plays in certain moments. I think A&M's run game is going to be something that's going to have to – they're going to have to get that going if they want to have a chance. For A&M, I think if they can grind this thing down, because even though they have a lot of weapons and even though they can be explosive, I just don't think they're a team that can turn a game into a track meet either. So that's kind of that weird balance. And so if they can just ground and pound, get a couple of touchdowns, and really just frustrate Auburn on defensively, then I think A&M could walk out of here with a victory, and we could be talking about how good A&M's defense is, how good their running game is, and how well Kellen Mond plays in spots and when he gets the opportunity.
Yeah, well, Josh, Coach mentioned trying to ground and pound them, but I don't know how successful they're going to be against an Auburn defensive line that is, has as much pro talent on it as any defensive line in the country.
Yeah, I mean, it could just sort of be shades of the Clemson game, and A&M just kind of looks stuck in the mud. What you have to like if you are an Auburn fan is the possibility of a nice clean pocket for the quarterback, because right now A&M is struggling. They have 5 sacks on the season, and they're in the group that has already played 3 games. So that's alarming. 2 of their opponents have been Texas State and Lamar. That's really alarming. I don't know what the pass rush is at all for A&M. It looks terrible so far.
That assumes that they have one at all.
Yeah.
Which is why they have to control the clock. They have to control the time of possession.
Yeah.
So even though the run game might not get chunk yardage, they could, the big thing is they can just control the clock and control the ball.
Yeah. So that's going to be good for Auburn's quarterback situation. Hopefully he can get off the schneid if you're a Tiger fan, and it'll be because he's not getting tacklers in his face because, like I said, A&M pass rush so far, awful.
Yeah, it has not been good. Josh, so who do you think is going to pull it out here?
I'm leaning a little towards Auburn. I just think it's going to play out very similar to that Clemson game. I don't see A&M having enough to overcome that good of a defensive line, and I don't see their defense being just quite up to the task enough. So,
Coach,
going with the road team.
Coach.
You know what? I'm going to be bold here, and I'm going to take the Aggies. I think they're going to finally get over the hump. I think it's going to be a close game. I think there's going to be a couple of turnovers and a special teams play that swings the favor in A&M's direction. I think I'm just not sure about Bo Nix right now, and that concerns me for Auburn. But what keeps them in it is their defense. But ultimately, I think A&M will win a close one.
Yeah, I'm with Coach here. I like Texas A&M. I don't feel that strongly about it, but I feel like Auburn is starting to slip a little bit, and I am concerned about the pass rush for Texas A&M. But I don't think that Auburn's passing game is so good that it's going to completely exploit it. All right. Well, let's go from College Station, Texas, up to Austin. Oklahoma State is coming into town to take on the Longhorns. Josh, you alluded to Oklahoma State in your quick slant, and they have won against Texas their last 5 trips to Austin. They're going to make it 6.
I think they have more than a puncher's chance. I think they have a great, great opportunity. And that is because Texas, against their only real opponent of the year, they gave up 31 of 39 for passing, 471 yards, 12.1 yards per pass. That was to LSU in that shootout. We know that Oklahoma State always rides in with a good offense in that Mike Gundy system, but their offense this year, the player names we might not know yet because it's so early in the year, but can I give you some numbers on Spencer Sanders? Do you guys like a 67.2 completion percentage through 3 games?
I'll take that.
Do you like 600? Do you like 622 yards through 3 games?
I mean, that's 200 a game, basically. That's not exactly the greatest thing I've ever heard.
Yes, but they have something Oklahoma State normally doesn't have. They have a running back with 521 rushing yards.
Chuba Hubbard.
Yes. So if it was 600 passing yards without much help on the running game, I'd share your concern. But to me, that's looking pretty balanced. Can I entertain you in a 7 touchdown to 1 interception ratio?
You can. You can also introduce me to Tylan Wallace, who accounts for about 2/3 of his passing yards.
Yeah,
he has 390 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. So I'm not sure if it's so much Sanders as it is Tylan Wallace being, I don't know, maybe the second best receiver in the country after Jerry Jeudy.
Maybe, but it's some impressive
that
start.
Helps.
It's an impressive start for this Okie State offense. The Texas defense and their one real task left a lot for me to be desired. I'm expecting a shootout. Sometimes in a shootout, it comes down to who has the ball last and maybe can make a last-second field goal, or maybe if one team has the unfortunate luck of missing a field goal. So I hope I'm not putting any pressure on him, but a potential early Groza candidate, Matt Amendola, already 19 of 19 for extra points, 3 for 3 from field goal. He's off to a rousing start. So I love this Okie State offense. The one game so far we have on Texas, their defense didn't look all that hot. Gundy should be coming in pretty confidently with those numbers you said at the opening, Matt. I think this is a
glorious mullet.
Yeah. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for Oklahoma State. They're coming in unranked, no real pressure. No one has them as a preseason conference favorite. Texas has all the pressure on the world on them to hold serve in this game before a road trip to West Virginia. And so, why not? I never take Oklahoma State against the Sooners. I'm more than happy to do it against Texas.
Yeah, Coach, quick tangent to West Virginia before we get back to this game. Where did that come from last week? And they beat NC State handily. They had an offense that actually finally scored.
Oh, my gosh.
It was a completely different team. I don't know what happened, but that is not the West Virginia we saw in week 1 and week 2.
They woke up. They came out of the coal mines, I guess. I don't know.
They started burning more couches on campus.
That just makes them happy.
Yeah,
so whatever
really
makes you happy. It just
do what makes you happy. If that happens to be burning couches, then burn some couches.
Burn away.
Coach, getting back to this one, obviously this is the time of year that I always fall back in love with Mike Gundy. They're off to a hot start again.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me I need to stop going down this road. Or can I continue on at least for another week?
I don't know. I'm at the fork in the road with them because I know the trend that they always follow. I know what they like to do. They like to trick you into thinking they're gonna do it this year, right? Bedlam's gonna come down to who's gonna win the Big 12. It's gonna be Bedlam this year because Oklahoma State is the real deal. But lest we forget, they fall apart towards the end of the season. So I think the fact that they get Texas right now is working well in their favor. Long term, I don't buy them yet. They're going to be a little bit harder of a sell for me because I know their trend and kind of how they roll, so to speak. So I'm not going to talk you out of jumping off the Okie State train. I really like Oklahoma State. I really like what they do offensively. That's about where it stops for me. I just don't believe them just yet. And so I'm going to leave it at that. But Kylan Wallace is just absolutely a beast. They're extremely explosive offensively. So I do like that factor, and I do like that we'll see what Texas has as far as resolve goes.
They just feel totally different this year. They've got the nation's leading rusher. They're top 10
I know,
team
but we
rushing
say that every year
right now. But not with their running game. Last year they finished just middle of the But they finished middle of the pack. They finished 42nd. Like, that's not that great.
I'm wondering where they were at this point of the year, though.
Maybe, but
I feel like you could put on our Week 4 preview last year, or Week 4 preview from the last 5 seasons, and hear us ramble on about how great Oklahoma State is.
Finished 44th a year ago, or 2 years ago. Excuse me.
They're consistent.
Yeah, they're consistently average.
66.
They're consistently good to average.
66.
They're a third
3 years ago.
Team. They're a third, ranked team in Big 12 at best. They're like the Everton of the Big 12. They're always in the middle of the pack. No matter how poorly or how great they start, they're always in the middle of the pack.
I just think they're more balanced. I just think they're more balanced this year.
And they may be. They may be, and they may surprise me. We may have this conversation later on and say, and I will gladly say that I'm wrong. I hope that I'm wrong. I like Mike Gundy. I like Oklahoma State. I want them to be good. I think them being good is good for Big 12 football. But I just don't believe it.
I mean, Mike Gundy is now not a 40-year-old man, but a 52-year-old man. And he has broken my heart every year for the last at least 14 years.
Only against Oklahoma State. Or only against Oklahoma.
If he could play, probably he could play himself. That would be something. But it would be
They probably do well in the spring game.
I would certainly hope so.
What would be the over/under on an Oklahoma State spring game?
I mean, it sounds like we're all picking Oklahoma State.
I don't think Coach is.
Okay, Coach is going to take Texas.
I'm good. No. Hold on. I got to. This one I've been back and forth. I got to talk myself into something here. All right, so help me out here, okay? Help me out, and it's going to come down honestly to, Texas defense just did not look great against the pass. We know that, right? We've established that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And against LSU, they looked less than great. And what we do know defensively is Oklahoma State has a reputation of just being average on that side of the ball. So we know that this is probably going to be more than likely, if I had to guess, a classic Big 12 game where just a lot of punches thrown and not a whole lot of defense, if I'm giving a boxing analogy. Not literal punches, because a lot of people will get tossed. The key is going to be how many big plays can Kylan Wallace make? How much can they lean on this run game for Oklahoma State? How much can they do that? They're leading the country. So show that on the road against a ranked opponent. Can they get pressure? Can they contain Sam Ehlinger? If they can contain Sam Ehlinger, they have a chance. Now, Oklahoma State is still in their upward ascent.
Yeah,
so
I think it's probably good for the Pokes to get them. It's the perfect time of year to get them early. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the Pokes are a team that always come out. They always come early. Out firing.
Yeah.
And then they come out really strong early, and then they just kind of fizzle out. So this is going in their favor. This is a game that's setting up for Texas to lose this game because it puts all the pressure on them in Austin. Everyone's saying Texas is back. Here's Texas.
Only
Texas,
one
Texas.
person says that.
Sam Ehlinger and this, Sam Ehlinger and that. I don't really buy Texas either. Because I don't think they have any long-term sustainability either.
No.
So there's two teams that I don't really buy. But if I had to buy one, if I had to go to the clearance rack and buy one of these teams, I'm gonna buy Oklahoma State.
Well, the problem is, Coach, that neither of them are on the clearance rack right now. When you're getting either of these teams, it is at too high a rate. So you want to just it's a stay away right now. But but I'm
gonna wait till they hit the clearance rack, and then I'll probably buy Oklahoma State before I buy Texas.
That works. Let's head out then to the state of Utah. The BYU Cougars were able to win last week home against USC, and they are now going to play their third Pac-12 team of the season. This time, number 22, Washington, comes into town. Washington had a solid victory against Hawaii last week, but that was just a week after that absolutely bizarre game against Cal, in which they lost 2019 after that crazy long lightning delay, finishing at 1:30 a.m. local time. So, Josh, can BYU knock off a ranked Pac-12 team at home for the second week in a row?
Well, I'm going to dust off a old bit that we used to do, which is it's a trap. This is all.
It's a trap.
This is all the makings of a classic trap. It is Washington's first day game since their opener against Eastern Washington, which doesn't really matter. There's an FCS team. So that's a little bit of a different routine. They've had back-to-back night games. This is their first road trip of the year. Provo is very high in the altitude. So this has all the makings of a classic trap game. And that's even before you start talking about BYU, who gutted out the win across the country at Tennessee and then looked really good against USC for stretches of that game, ultimately winning by a field goal. Zach Wilson, their quarterback, doesn't have too many touchdowns, but I do think outside of that anomaly, I have liked his play as of late, and the BYU defense is playing fairly well against such top talent on paper based on playing 3 Power 5 teams, 2 of them ranked at the time of the game. So there's a lot to like about this BYU team. I think what it comes down to really is Washington has not maybe an amazing offense, but an offense that is fairly good. But where they really make their hay is what Chris Peterson's done year in, year out with that defense is really good. And I think if that defense comes to play, holds BYU to 3 touchdowns or less, I'm not sure that BYU can win in that tight of a game. I think BYU needs to, if they're going to win it, it's going to be in that like 28-24 type range, maybe 24-21 type thing. I think BYU needs to somehow find 4 scores, and against Washington's defense, that's going to be tough. But it's an obvious trap game for me. There's a lot to like about BYU's chances in this one. A little bit extra one, Washington's next game is against USC. So maybe they're looking by also.
I mean, it's hard to look by BYU at this point, though. I mean,
USC is not as good as we're making them out to be.
No, but within that conference, they are the banner program. They're the team that you want to beat every year if you play them. They're the team that you want to upset when they're good. You're the team you want to embarrass when they're bad. They are, they're Ohio State. They're Alabama. They're Oklahoma.
Yeah, you're right. They are.
And when they're down, you just salivate even more. It's like when
you don't feel bad for them when they're down.
No, it's like when Brady Hoke was at Michigan, people were upset when they didn't have Michigan on the schedule. They're like, damn, this was our chance.
All right, so you have way more confidence in BYU than I do in this game, and that's not because I
wouldn't say I have confidence. I just think they got some stuff working in their direction. If you're looking for an upset,
yeah, I think so, and I think there's some validity to that, but I don't know. I think Chris Peterson. I think he. I want to say that he is above all that. Now, when you look at BYU, they have no pass rush. Okay, they even though they couldn't get any pressure on Kevin Slovis, he threw 3 picks. But I think obviously if we're looking at Kevin Slovis and Jacob Eason, we're putting them side by side, taking Jacob Eason 10 times out of 10. So I think he's going to fare better with no pass rush. Okay. Ground game, let's say Tennessee, as bad and putrid as they were, they still rushed for 242 yards on the Cougs. So they have that going for them. Washington is an extremely physical team. They've got a great defense as well. And so we will see kind of how that translates. It's a different environment. So that's a little bit of a concern. It is a day game. That's a concern for Washington, but because they just haven't done that yet this year. And so if BYU wants to have a chance at an upset here, they've got to find a way to steal a couple of possessions, and they've got to find a way to capitalize off of turnovers in a big, big way. So they've got to create havoc. The pressure really is all on Washington because they can't lose this game, and there's not really any pressure on BYU because they're not supposed to win this game anyway. So I like BYU. I think they're a lot better than what I gave them credit for during our season previews. So I will give them that. Zach Wilson has been he's been efficient. He's been effective. The running game has been nice for BYU. They've done a lot of good things. They were never going to be an overwhelmingly talented team. They were never going to be an overwhelmingly good team. They are a very nice, decent, solid team, and I like the way they play. I just don't think they have enough in the tank for this, truthfully.
Yeah, I'm not sure they do either. I mean, it has been such a tough schedule for them. Start the year with a Holy War, then at Tennessee, then USC, now Washington. I mean, they haven't had a non-Power 5 opponent yet.
And this will be the hardest team they've played all year.
Yeah, this is going to – well, I don't know. Utah is pretty dang good.
Yeah, I don't know. Like that would be a good game between Utah and Washington. I think talent-wise, Washington's more talented, but I think Utah is just a better all-around unit, all-around team.
I would agree with that.
If that makes sense.
That makes sense to me. Josh, it's time for us finally to move on to the game at Camp Randall Stadium. Number 13, Wisconsin. Number 11, Michigan. Josh, Wisconsin had the bye week last week, chance to rest up. Do you think that they will be able to move the ball on the ground with Jonathan Taylor against another outstanding Don Brown defense?
Yes, because they moved the ball well last year before inexplicably getting away from that. I think Paul Chryst outthought himself last year, and that game got away from them. Also last year, let's be honest, the Wisconsin defense had tons and tons of issues. Yeah, the talent level in terms of the opposition hasn't been very impressive, but it seems like Wisconsin's defense through their 2 games is playing a lot better.
Well, they've given up 0 points in 2 games, so you can't do much better than that.
So just a little bit better. This might be hyperbole. I don't think it is, but feel free to chime in. I think this game, all the pressure in the world is on Michigan because Wisconsin can still win the division even if they lose this game. If Michigan loses this game, their margin for error is 0 because a 2-loss team isn't winning the Big Ten East. They would need to win out. And they still have Michigan State, who has a really good defense, gives them fits.
In really ugly uniforms.
Yeah. They still have Penn State, a team that we don't know what they are yet, but they seem to have some flashes of solid play. And then they have the big boys, Ohio State. So this game, Michigan has to win, I believe, to have any chance of winning the Big Ten East. They have not won the Big Ten East with Harbaugh. He has been a major letdown in terms of on-field success. He's feeling that pressure. His track record on the road in ranked games now at Michigan has been terrible. He has yet to beat Ohio State. And they're coming into this game with all that pressure in a place that they haven't won in a long time. And on top of that, it's weird to say that a game time favors a team, but it's an 11 o'clock kickoff. For whatever reason, Wisconsin gets a lot of noon games.
They get a ton of noon games.
Mostly because the student section swears throughout the game, and ESPN's not going to put them on primetime ever for that.
No. That is not going to happen.
So Paul Chryst is used to playing big games at noon.
To be fair, they've been playing more and more games on Fox. But
true, but this is a noon game on Fox, so
onions.
Yeah, I just think that this is a wonderful opportunity for Wisconsin. They are as good as Michigan. I think their offense is a little bit better, especially since Shea Patterson can't hold on to the ball. I would say Michigan's defense is probably maybe a pinch better. Even though Wisconsin's posted back-to-back shutouts. But
yeah, I don't know. We don't know anything about this Wisconsin defense yet because it is high. It's not only possible, but at this point, maybe probable that South Florida and Central Michigan are 2 of the worst offenses in the entire country.
Well, Central Michigan put up 100 a week ago.
Against who?
I feel like I'm not going to want to answer that argument to help my argument.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But no, I think Wisconsin's offense is a little bit better. Michigan, okay, maybe their defense pans out to be a little bit better.
Michigan.
But in terms of all the pressure, that's not even a contest. Michigan, this has to feel like a Week 12 game for them. Like, it's a must win, which is crazy to say this early, but with the way that Big Ten East is, a 2-loss team is not winning it. They cannot drop this game.
Well, what's even crazier than that, Coach, is that so far this season, Jack Cohn has been the far superior quarterback to anyone that Michigan has had behind center, including Shea Patterson.
Yeah, that is very, very odd because Shea Patterson was all anybody ever wanted to talk about outside of Justin Fields in the Big Ten as far as the quarterback position goes. So that's kind of cool to see. Jack Cohn, who's had to battle the criticism and has had to battle the I guess the hoopla or the hype surrounding Graham Mertz.
Yeah,
yeah,
hoopla is a good. I mean, Wisconsin is not used to getting.
Or do you like that word?
Yeah, it is definitely hoopla because Wisconsin is not used to getting quarterback recruits like that.
Exactly.
They don't. Wisconsin fans do not know what to do with Graham Mertz. He got his first game action against Central Michigan, and like I swear people were like fainting whenever he just like dropped back to pass.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But this game being a road game for Michigan, I think Michigan's a really, really weird team. I guess they kind of follow the lead of their head coach, who is a really, really weird guy.
Dude.
I think his highlight of his tenure at Michigan was camping out in a treehouse outside of a recruit's house. I guess
gotta violate something.
There's a line.
Just general morality.
There's a line that's been crossed somewhere.
Never mind. Sorry, I just double checked. The NCAA actually does allow 2 treehouse visits per recruiting period.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. So,
but not if you're in the dead period, because you can't be in a deadwood treehouse.
No.
I don't know.
Well, yeah.
If you have a treehouse and a dead tree, it's probably gonna fall over.
Well, it's very hazy. The rules are. So if you want to see truly how weird Jim Harbaugh is, and how weird that staff is, I know it's a couple of years old at this point, but Amazon Prime did an All or Nothing that followed the Michigan Wolverines. I thought it was a very well-made documentary, but it also illustrates just how weird Jim Harbaugh is, because I think he has a closet full of just standard Dockers khakis, and that same basic Michigan sweatshirt and that weird boxy hat. I think his closet that's all it is.
I think he's got a couple polos in there.
And
I feel like he has a couple Navy Michigan polos in there.
Probably.
Maybe a yellow stripe on it. Maybe a maize stripe on there.
But yeah, the fact that we're talking about things like how he doesn't let his team eat chicken because it's a nervous bird, like that just kind of tells you where Michigan is as a program. They're very it's just odd.
They're just a bunch of weird, flipping dudes.
Just weird.
Donovan Peoples-Jones can't stay on the field.
He can't stay on the field.
None of their running backs have really broken through, whether it's Karan Higdon, Zach Charbonnet, whatever. Like, none of them have really, really broken through.
And Shea Patterson is having a nice season, but he's not having
not that nice.
He's having an okay season, but
got fumbleitis right now.
Yeah, Dylan McCaffrey's been better than Patterson,
but nowhere near the hype of, oh my God, we got Shea Patterson to transfer from Ole Miss. Oh my gosh. We're going to finally beat Ohio State. No, Justin Fields is going to light your butts up.
Gentlemen, I hate to interrupt, but Tulane just ran an incredible play.
It just came on my television.
Yeah, little fumble-rooski, little old school Nebraska.
Fake kneel for about 25 yards.
Yeah, one more play and they're in field goal territory.
Holy cow! They just ran the fumble-rooski.
Yeah, they just need
what? Yeah. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But also, tonight they are not the Green Wave. They are the Periwinkle Wave. I do not know what is going on with those uniforms.
I'm watching the National Football League right now, and I'm watching the Legend of Gardner Minshew.
I would rather watch
you're missing out.
Yeah, you're missing out on the Legend of Willie Fritz.
This has been a 31-31 shootout. We're heading to overtime unless Tulane hits another nice chunk play.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I better turn away from this game. Gardner Minshew is one of my favorite people, so figured I'd tune in. Watch Gardner Minshew.
All right. Well, let's so we can get back to these games, guys. Let's wrap this one up and then quickly get to spread formations. I like the Badgers here. I like the Badgers by 10.
This isn't a spread formation game, so I won't concern myself with that. But I do like the Badgers in this game.
Yeah, I'm on board with Wisconsin here. I think they're just too good, and I think Jonathan Taylor, tailback, is going to have a dynamite game.
I certainly hope so. Holy moly, that was phenomenal.
Holy Toledo.
Houston,
No, holy Tulane.
Houston has to be one of the best 1-3 teams to start the year. They got a good offense. They've played some tough opponents, and Tulane moving to 3-1, good for them. But yeah, let's get to the spread formations.
Let's get to the spread formations. With that over, on the season so far, with minus 1 week that has been lost to the history books. Coach and I are both 4-6. Josh is 5-5 against the spread. Let's get back on the winning side. Josh, we'll start SMU at TCU. Horned Frogs 9.5-point favorites at home. Over/unders put at 55. What do you like?
Well, TCU is ranked, and they looked pretty good a week ago against Purdue, although Purdue's had some issues here in the early going, to say the least. SMU, I don't know what there is, but I sort of like what they've been doing, 49 and 47 points the last 2 weeks. I think they move the ball a little bit better than Purdue. I think they finish drives a little bit better than Purdue. I think they score more points than Purdue. I don't know if the Ponies have enough to get over the hump, but I do actually think they can cover and keep this close, also factor in it's a rivalry game.
All right. So Josh is with TCU. Coach, what about you?
No, I'm with SMU.
Sorry, that's what I mean, SMU. You were the Ponies. Coach
is taking a push. He believes that there's going to be a half point scored.
I don't know what to think of SMU either. They are 3-0, but and they've beaten two teams in North Texas and Arkansas State that we think are some of the better group of 5 teams. And then TCU goes in and absolutely punks Purdue last week in West Lafayette. So I don't know. I want to go with Coach on the over here. So I guess that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the over as well. It's an aspirational choice. Let's head next then to Pittsburgh, PA. Central Florida, 11-point favorites on the road in the big ketchup bottle. Josh, over-under here is set at 61. What side are you on?
I mean, this is a no-brainer. I took UCF big a week ago against Stanford. Pitt, I mean, what are they doing? We talked ad nauseum about that dumb field goal that they attempted down 7. I don't think they're particularly well coached overall. I like Pat Narduzzi as a defensive coordinator, but I'm writing off Pitt. I love Central Florida. I've been on the Central Florida bandwagon now for multiple years, and I like them back with George O'Leary. So give me Nitro, baby. All
right, Coach.
I'm a huge believer in UCF. I don't know why, but I just am. They seem to score more points than the other team at a higher rate. So that typically will put you in favor of anybody. But
that's dangerously close to a Corsoism there.
Yeah, exactly. No, but on a
this
serious
Central
note,
Florida team seems to be scoring more points than their opponents.
Yeah, they seem to be doing it more frequently too. But on a serious note, I think Pat Narduzzi is more concerned about what's happening with the Steelers' quarterback position than he is about his own team. So I'm going to take UCF big here. They're just electric. They not only beat Stanford last week, not them saying Stanford is what Stanford used to be, but Stanford's still a relatively good brand name in the Pac-12, and they just completely dismantled them. So give me UCF big.
Let's make it 3 for UCF big. Next, we will head to the Grove in Oxford, Mississippi. Cal Golden Bears come in at 3-0 with an absolutely outstanding defense, only giving up 16 points a game. Ole Miss, they've won their last 2 after losing that really strange season opener at Memphis. Josh. Ole Miss 2.5-point favorites at home, despite the fact that Cal is the only ranked team in this game. Over/under set it at only 41.5. What are you thinking?
Well, everyone keeps saying, Cal's on upset alert, Cal's on upset alert, Cal's on upset alert. Yeah, but it's also just Ole Miss. They lost to Memphis, only could score 10 points. Cal has a hell of a defense, so they might hold Ole Miss to another paltry performance. Then they've played an FCS team, and then I'm just struggling to remember their third opponent.
They played someone else.
Yeah, I apologize to whatever school that is. We try and remember everything on this show. Sometimes things slip through the cracks.
Yeah, they do.
But I don't know why people say Cal's on total upset alert. I think, Pac-12 teams struggle going east. Maybe it's some of that.
It's equivalent of a 9 a.m. kick for them.
Yeah. Maybe some people look at some of those softer Pac-12 teams and see them routinely losing these types of games. But Cal's constructed more like a Big Ten or SEC team with this bruising defense. Maybe it'll end up being really stupid, but I'm actually going to go the opposite way. I just think defensive teams are more portable. I think they bring that defense. I think Ole Miss looks again like they sort of did against a good Memphis team. I'm taking Cal to cover because I think they actually win outright. Also, pretty resilient team. They won the crazy delay game against Washington.
Coach?
Yeah, I think Josh said it as perfect as you could say it. I'm not sure what the hype is around Ole Miss right now because Ole Miss is built more like a middle-of-the-road Pac-12 team, and Cal is built more like a pesky middle-of-the-road SEC team. So great defense, good enough on offense, can compete with the upper-tier teams, but not quite good enough to get over the hump on a consistent basis. So that's kind of where they're at. And then Ole Miss is just what we would say about Arizona State. So I don't buy it. I don't buy Ole Miss right now. I don't buy that. Oh, this is upset alert. I think Cal's defense is the real deal, and I think they will give fits to Ole Miss, and I think we're going to see them come out victorious.
Yeah, I'll ride with Justin Wilcox every day of the week. Let's now head to the Tar Heel State. Mac Brown's squad is coming off of their first loss of the season in a non-conference game against Wake Forest last week, but they are 3-point favorites at home against App State this weekend. Over/under here set at 58. Josh, what do you like?
I don't know if it'll be enough to win, but I do like the App State offense so far. They've been racking up a lot of points. The interesting thing is, in their last game, App State's only played twice. They survived a shootout, 56-41 against Charlotte. Charlotte runs. They are seventh in the country right now in rushing. And so App State gave up a lot of points. They gave up a fair amount of rush yards in that. So I made it pretty simple on myself, and I looked up what is North Carolina doing running the ball. And it's okay. It's middle of the pack. It's nothing too special. But I do think that it's going to be enough. I think App State, really good team like always. But this North Carolina team, they're buying what Mac Brown is selling. They've had some gritty comebacks. They almost came back against Wake Forest as well. They should have had that extra second. Who knows? Maybe they would have been 3-0 coming to this game. I think we're going to get a little bit of a North Carolina bounce back. That being said, it is App State. Watch me be totally dead wrong, but I will take the Tar Heels to cover at home.
Coach.
Yeah, App State usually has a tendency to frustrate me and piss me off with me picking against them, and they making me always wrong, regardless of whether I picked them or picked for them. UNC is surprising. So I'm going to pick UNC. I'm going to go with them, and then I'm going to let them. Again, I'm going to let them prove me wrong, and I'm going to let them, make me a non-believer. So, give me the Tar Heels to cover. I think Josh said it perfectly, so I won't expound upon that.
Josh brought up the trap game a little bit earlier. I think this is a massive trap for North Carolina. Do you know who they have next week, Josh?
No.
None other than the number 1 team in the country, Clemson, at home.
Well, how's that a trap then?
This game is a trap because they are looking ahead to Clemson 100,000%.
Why would North Carolina knows they're going to get killed? If anything, it should make them focused and be like, oh, here's a good opportunity to pick up a win. I feel like a trap game has to be when you're like.
No, it's the week before like a rivalry game or the week before a big game.
A trap game should be like Clemson playing against somebody that is an
Clemson
easy
playing
win, and then they have a formidable opponent that they're favored in.
Yeah, the ACC is a bad example because outside of Virginia and Clemson, there's no one you can really trust. But I think a trap game has to be with teams that are reliably ranked, and North Carolina they're rebuilding.
Okay. I understand. I understand what you're saying.
I see where you're coming from, Matt. Just in my mind, I've always thought of trap games as teams that have like
of Michigan overlooking Indiana before they play Ohio State.
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay. So anyhow, either way, I'm going with App State here.
Ooh, I like it.
I like App State a lot. Finally, Boston College is only an 8.5-point favorite, on an 8.5-point favorite against the State University of New Jersey in East Piscataway. Over under 57.5. Josh, what do you like?
So BC is coming off the most embarrassing loss that a team can really have, right? They lost at home.
No. This
Kansas.
Game would be the most embarrassing loss that a team could have.
True, but they had one of the most embarrassing. How about that?
Okay.
Hedge my bets to Kansas, where they got doubled up. They lost 48-24, and I get a perverse kick out of reading teams' message boards when they lose games.
It's called Schadenfreude, Josh.
Yes, it's enjoyable for me to read that. And what I noticed was people in Boston College cannot stand their defense. They gave up 329 rushing yards to Kansas, also 238 passing yards. And they think that they have a terrible, terrible defense. And maybe that's true. They held Richmond to 13 points, but then they also gave up 28 to Virginia Tech. But what's the nicest thing to get for an ailing defense? It's a Rutgers offense that is inept. They cannot pass. They cannot block. They cannot run. And real simply, it's hard to cover any types of spread when I'm not sure that Rutgers can score 10 points against an FCS team. I just don't. Or an FBS team.
I don't know if they can score 10 points against an FCS team either.
There's no reason literally at all to pick Rutgers to cover in this game. The only reason you do that is if you think Rutgers is going to pop in the game tape and watch Kansas. But here's the problem. Rutgers is so inept that they'll probably pop in the Richmond BC video and recreate Richmond's game plan because that's how stupid they are. That's how horribly coached they are. They are a laughingstock. Get them out of here. BC rolls it up. BC wins like 45-0.
Okay. Coach.
Wow. I felt like we just went round and round and round and round and round about BC. Wow. I'm my head's spinning a little bit. I have no idea what to do on this one.
I'm hoping to make you so dizzy you pick Rutgers. That was my entire goal.
That was your goal? Mission accomplished. No, I'm not picking Rutgers, just so you know. I'm going to pick BC because I don't think there's a whole lot of opportunity for them to really screw this one up now. I don't think they're going to go for the double whammy of getting doubled up by Kansas and then losing to Rutgers, which losing to Rutgers, you might as well cancel your football program. So
if they do that back-to-back, Steve Adazio's got to be canned immediately, right?
If you lose to Kansas and Rutgers in back-to-back weeks, I guess he would have to. For me, he would have, if they played UMass the next week and lost, and that's when you would have to can him. But this is about as close as you're going to get to that.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, I think Rutgers is not the hardest game of the last two that you. I think Rutgers is an easier game than UMass for them at this point. I don't think Rutgers is good at all. So I'm taking BC big.
The single Rutgers fan that listens to the show is screaming right now saying, "We beat UMass."
True. He's screaming at me.
I'm gonna take. I'm gonna take BC. I can't not take BC here. I believe in AJ Dillon too much. I believe in Anthony Brown too much to not take BC. But I'm very tempted by the under. But I think I'm gonna stick with BC here. So I think that about does it for us, Josh.
So what's is the over under points or people in the stands?
I think it's the combined points and people in the stands.
There we go.
Under.
Well, we did omit one thing.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, we did. We buried a slight lead. And it's unfortunate because, look, that Cal Ole Miss game is getting all sorts of buzz. Blah, blah, blah.
We were having such a great show.
Blah, blah, blah. California team from the Bay Area traveling to an SEC team. Wah, wah, wah. Well, guess what? Arkansas is doing the same thing. Arkansas is hosting a Bay Area team in their house. It's not quite as good as Cal. It's also not quite as good as Stanford. It's San Jose State. It's the Spartans. But, let's give some love to San Jose State. They're a pretty good team. They routed Northern Colorado. And then they lost a heartbreaker 34-16 to Tulsa. But the Spartans, they're clicking. They are going to be tough competition for Arkansas. But as we said last show, Arkansas looks dialed in. We have them, all three of us, penciled in, going 11-1. So I think Arkansas nails it. I think they put their best foot forward. I think Arkansas covers that 21-point spread. Oh, wait. No, it's Arkansas. I wouldn't take that bet. But let's go Razorbacks.
Woo, pig, suey.
All right. Well, on that note, I think it's time for us to end the game. So, or at least this show. So, on behalf of our own offensive coordinator, the coach, Corey Burton, here in Nashville, and our intrepid blogger, Josh Cook, up there in the Windy City, Chicago, Illinois, this is the professor in the Music City saying so long and see you next time on the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast.
Go Hilltoppers. And I'm not talking about Western Kentucky. Talking about Hillwood.
Beat Gallatin.
Beat Gallatin.
Thanks for listening to the Illegal Motion College Football Podcast. To get in touch with the show, email us at illegalmotionpodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at illegal_motion and check out our Facebook page.